and people can't shut it down in lane, and then it gets a free ticket to the late game where, of course, it just does an absurd amount of damage.
And specifically in this meta, where backline threat's kind of out the window, you only really think about the teleport flanks from the likes of Maokai, when a lot of those tanky top laners that could really get to the backline like Hecarim are no longer in the meta. We've seen so many games where Kog'Maw waddles around a fight, free hitting with auto attacks, and putting out that massive damage capacity that he's always had.
Well, my theory about jungle bans is right out the window, Bob Smithy. It is Alistair and Annie. So going after Pure, who has had a more limited champion pool. Victor banned by Najin. Of course, Najin been emphasizing the Twisted Fate on Jagung recently. He has had some good games on TF and Victor, but sometimes struggles outside of that champion pool. And there is a Lucian.
Lucian, a big champion. Respect. You know, we talk about this pick in terms of the fact that it's had a very low win rate in a lot of scenes. OQ completely smashed in the last series against Anarchy in the last 2 games, was really smashing members, and to get the respect ban, we're talking about the meta changing. What a crazy meta where one small laning buff that really makes that laning that much more regular for the likes of Braum. Now he's in first pick territory.
And especially when you ban out 2 supports. Those are 2. So let's talk about what they're doing right now.
Engage is gone.
Yep, KOO banned out 2 primary engage supports. Where does Pure go right now? The engage is gone, and Watch, I mean, simply isn't the best jungler. When we compare engage capabilities between Watch and Hojin, KOO's junglers, both Hojin and Wisdom, are very good at engaging, especially with Evelynn.
And that's also think about this, because of course, when you first think of Braum, you think disengage. Of course, the ultimate, just in general, the kit built around disengage. The likes of the Ezreal mid has really unlocked Braum's offensive capacity. Every time we see that Q, the Winter's Bite hit, and of course the stun come through, people are dying in this meta with the large amount of poke, with the long-range auto attack carries, like the likes of Kog'Maw, who activates Biocane Barrage, gets the Rage passive from the Trinity Force, and gets those 3 hits off. So very good for disengage, which is what we expect from KOO, given they banned all the primary engage, but flexible enough to get those picks as well.
And look at it, it's going further with that primary engage. So in the first round, they take Janna and Rek'Sai Najin, and KOO responds with the Gragas and the Maokai. These are the other primary engage picks right now.
And they need damage from those last 2 picks. It has to be. It's on a silver platter for the first Kog'Maw pick from Prey.
Absolutely. Kog'Maw and TF would both be great picks for KOO. They would have a ton of kill pressure in the side lanes.
Now you've taken Janna. Do you just take away the Kog'Maw if you're Najin?
I think you take TF Kog'Maw here, because if you don't, okay, they're going on to OQ's Vayne, a champion that has won them games, a champion that has earned OQ bans.
Boy.
And the Yasuo against the Twisted Fate. Last time we saw Kuro play Yasuo, it was at MSI in their best-of-3 loss to WE. It was not impressive. It looked like KOO did not know how to team fight with that champion.
And not MSI, because that was back at IEM Katowice.
Oh, IEM, that's
even
right.
longer ago, and the Yasuo pick from just off the side, from the outskirts of Kuro's champion pool. Now, they needed damage with those last 2 picks. They've certainly got it. It's a good laning matchup, but this is certainly a risky pick for KOO, and one they've already struggled on in previous time. A lot of time to practice since then.
But look at the knockup and the synergy they have.
Oh,
Maokai, Gragas,
oh,
and the Braum. They have a lot of synergy with the Yasuo here. And Najin, they don't really have a tank. So Yasuo could absolutely rip through their composition. Duke may try to go for the Fizz counterpick into the Maokai, but frankly, Smeb did very well against Marin's Fizz in this matchup in the laning phase in their matches against SKT. That was actually one of the bright spots, I feel, to those games for the KOO Tigers. And now with that Fizz locked in, they're going to hope that Duke can overtake this game, because their only win condition right now is to play pick and to split push in a 1-3-1.
Absolutely. They need Duke to be completely monstering, completely bodying Smeb on this Maokai, because otherwise, wave clear is not great from Najin. It's just Twisted Fate, who has those low base stats, very diveable by the likes of Gragas, Maokai, and the Yasuo. You know, if you just stand under the turret as Twisted Fate, just throw out the barrel lazily, that's already an instant knock-up for the last breath from Kuro. Can KOO play this Twisted Fate at a top competitive level? That's still a question mark, though, Monte Cristo, as he really needs to perform this game. But Prey, first time for the Kog'Maw, and you couldn't have picked a much better comp for it.
I think Kog'Maw Braum is one of the strongest lanes in the game right now. Should have an advantage, and this presents a really troubling situation for Najin. You do not want to be in the Kog Braum lane if you are Vayne Janna, but you need the Fizz to be in the Maokai lane for Najin. Najin, we're looking at two diametrically opposed compositions. Najin needs to split push. They need to play pick. But if KOO gets rolling in a 5v5 team comp, they have all of the engage. Najin has none. They do not have tools to get onto the back line. So Najin, playing to their strengths, need to win the laning phase. Let's see if they can do it. Let's get into game one. Game one here between Najin Empire and the KOO Tigers. I love games like this, Papa Smithy. I love when we see team compositions that have such different goals.
Yeah, they both have distinct win conditions. They're not fighting for the same things, really. As you mentioned, split push versus group. It's objective focus versus side wave pushing. And on a rainy day in Seoul, where maybe your spirits are a bit lowered, I'm hoping for KOO and Najin to really boost it up as my parents are on the screen.
That's right. Obviously, these parents coming here from Abu Dhabi. Long trip.
Via Australia, London, and all other wonderful places.
So, yeah, KOO getting some deep wards in early. We'll see if they opt for this lane swap, although Najin can get kind of cocky with this Vayne pick, thinking that they have that advantage regardless of the preference of matchups.
There's a lot to invade for, both matchups and, of course, the saplings being protected that Smeb's put down. You know, you mentioned Najin really want to get Fizz ahead. I mean, Gragas and KOO in general are going to be aware of just how bad this matchup is. We've seen so much play around this Maokai versus Fizz matchup. Which jungler's going to be more on point? You have to kind of put the first bet towards Hojin, but he does have less competitive experience this season than Watch, who, hot and cold, that's kind of been his career story.
Yeah, that is true, and especially because we know how this matchup goes when the KOO Tigers play it. We see a lot of Maokais bowled over by the Fizz pick, but over the last few matches, it wasn't only versus SKT, but prior to that, KOO has been unafraid of playing into this. Is that foolish? Perhaps. Might be a little bit on the foolish side, but in a way they've made it work, and they gank for the Maokai quite frequently to help out. And Kuro, this is a pick that, seeing this makes me very nervous, but perhaps the KOO Tigers have solidified their play around this and will be doing a better job of synchronizing the Yasuo ult than they did all the way back at IEM, because those team fights were a mess.
That was back in March. It was in a meta when, of course, KOO were famous for their late-game team fights, and still they were not able to put it together for the Yasuo. So we'll have to see whether the Yasuo pick has been practiced. Very confidently locked in, so you have to think pre-planned for this game.
Yeah, I think absolutely. They came in here thinking that if the TF goes, I think that basically their thought process was, we're going to take TF, and if you take TF, this is how we're going to respond to it. Of course, they'll be able to block a lot of TF's abilities with that wind wall, so certainly a pretty nice upside.
It's champions like Kog'Maw and Braum, TF, that are really shaping the meta. These are champions that have very high win rates. Braum, of course, not the big sample size just yet, so can't really talk about whether it's a maximum pick, but Twisted Fate and Kog'Maw are the two highest win rate champions in Champions this season.
Well, whenever the Assassins get nerfed, Twisted Fate rises. You can't really argue with his buff, and here comes Hojin looking for a gank. Nice tornado from Pure, going to shut that down. And Duke going to Playful Trickster, and Watch coming in, but Watch is quite low. Watch is level 3, Hojin only level 2. There's the knock-up onto Gorilla. Gorilla level 2, can he get out? Has to use that flash. And they're trying to turn this around, but the Winter's Bite will miss.
And now a melee support without flash means that KOO are going to have to play so much more defense in the top lane. We expect that Fizz will be able to pick up that much more free CS, not having to worry about Gorilla harassing him. And Gorilla, honestly, Probably going to follow his usual playstyle. He doesn't want to stay in this lane any longer than he has to. This guy is one of the best roaming supports in Champions.
Yeah, and it also affects, we talk about how Prey has sort of a substandard laning phase, but a lot of that is how the KOO Tigers like to play. We look at Gorilla, he's actually number 2 in kill contribution in the league, only behind Chaser. So he just makes so many early plays on the map for Kuro and Smeb to get them ahead that sometimes Prey isn't really able to CS as well as some of these other AD carries because he just doesn't have that same level of help in the lane itself.
And that was the notable thing that we talked about during the SKT vs KOO series, is that despite doing all this winning, despite KOO having that big run, Prey is negative in CS at 10 minutes compared to his opponent. He's always behind in gold compared to his opponent just because, as you mentioned, Gorilla loves to pack up and leave his Kuro. That's stunned, but opens up enough distance to get away safely.
Yeah, Watch not really going to commit to that, especially with the pick a card on cooldown from Goong. Goong having trouble in this laning phase. It is very difficult to trade with a lane bully like Yasuo, who has that shield in the wind wall to shut down a lot of your damage.
Still a lot of pressure onto mid, targeted stun, and of course, the big CC that can come through from the unburrow. But every time he pulls anything other than a gold card, gets harassed out of lane.
Well, Watch doing a good job of playing around Hojin right now, stuffing several of his gangs, staying up. He's 18-7 in terms of CS right now, so been doing a much better job of farming and getting those levels in early. Hojin lagging behind.
Let's talk about the lane swap that's occurred, because of course we do have a Maokai versus Vayne bottom lane matchup. This helps Vayne pick up the experience, because not a wonderful laning matchup. Vayne are not known for their 2v2 laning. If Vayne can pick up that uninterrupted farm, pick up the Blade of the Ruin King, there is significant outplay potential onto a Kog'Maw if we do see the resulting 2v2 matchup later on.
Well, it has to come down to that split pushing, though, and, you know, Papa, I'm just not sold on split pushing in the current meta. It's just too hard to win the game with a split push, because eventually, if you could crack the base by yourself, that's one thing, but it's so hard to get an inhibitor or an inhibitor turret all by your lonesome. And eventually you're going to have to actually fight for a 5th dragon or a Baron. And if you don't have a large gold lead with a split pushing composition, because these champions are designed to be split pushers, they're not designed to be team fighters. And that can create a lot of problems because you're unlikely to ever get that gold lead.
And the game state was changed with the introduction of the stacking mechanic around Dragon, which meant that team fights, you had to opt into them more and more. Gone were the days of the CLG you stall from about 20 minutes into the game. One factor to consider, though, is that, of course, on either this patch or the last one, finally the slow was removed from those inhibitor ties. This patch.
So no, the last one.
So suddenly, split pushing, okay, it's still hard. Okay, you're still not guaranteed to break that inhibitor turret, but it's better. So there's still slight hope if you're Najin.
I also think that Elixir of Ruin is a very underutilized item if you're going to commit to split pushing. But those are my own feelings. I'd love to see more of that from dedicated split pushers.
An option that we'll see. The laning phase has been very quiet, and in general, not much has happened this game. If we look at the CS, you know, the only big advantage is in the lane counterpick matchup. Yasuo fairly comfortably ahead of Twisted Fate.
Indeed. So Hojin here, sussing out this pink ward, wants to get some pressure onto the blue buff. Goong just going to wrap around the opposite side and blue card it, and then auto attack it, and then auto attack it. For the pickup. Hojin playing a little bit dangerously. They're going to go for it. Hojin coming in right there, but they don't follow up with the last breath off of the knockup.
He didn't hit a knockup that time. I believe he just airballed it completely, so they have to back away. Now, Twisted Fate hasn't been able to pull blue cards because he gets all-in by Crow every time he needs to, so blue buff control was that much more important for Najin. It's so important they secured this second blue buff. I expect a big contest by KOO come third blue.
We'll have to wait and see if that goes through. In the meantime, Sheen picked up from Prey on the bottom side. Can he actually do some work, slow down OQ's Vayne with that massive range advantage? And Smeb going after red. Oh, it could be a big collapse right here. Watch is not seeing anything yet. Now he knows what's going on. There's the Destiny. They have 3. It's going to be a 3 versus 3 if they go in. But KOO looks like there's a nice knockup from Watch as he comes through. Windwall going to block the Fish. Fish still going to hit some people. Watch goes down first. And now Duke targeted out right here. Smeb has that red. There's the flash arcane smash. KOO trying to get a gold card onto Kuro. That's not going to work. Kuro flashes away. He will sidestep the wild cards. And there is no more damage. OQ and Pure are up here for some reason. Gorilla not level 6 yet, so he's going to use that Unbreakable just to help his team get out. And will OQ go forward? Exhaust onto OQ right now. They may want to keep fighting this. Kuro does not have his ultimate. They're going to have to sacrifice Smeb to OQ. And there's another flash from Gorilla. Long skirmish. Windwall comes up at the last second. So it will be a 2-for-1 trade in the end in favor of the KOO Tigers. OQ eventually gets the red buff.
But the crazy thing is that, remember, they actually committed walking all the way from bottom layer there, Najin, to fight in a fight on the top side of the river. So many resources used just to pick up effectively a red buff and a poor kill trade, 1 for 2. Najin really have to snowball this bottom lane because Kog'Maw got a free shop, had the lane in the place he wanted to. Okay, you're going to have to kind of hang back. You're not going to really be able to trade for the next 2 minutes or so, but it's a lot invested just for that payoff of the red buff on OQ.
Yeah, and Kuro with a very early static shift now on Yasuo. 10 minutes, not a normal timing you see at that item, usually comes about 3 minutes later. Meantime, Smeb gets a kill, gets an assist, and he's ahead of this Fizz now. They need the Fizz to win this lane.
And they've committed so much for a negative trade. So look, Vayne getting going is one thing, but if Maokai can just control the Fizz, stay an item or half an item ahead of Fizz, their game plan's kind of out the window.
Yeah, it does fall apart very quickly. And Kuro is going to be slashing through these minions. Gun still has to play very reserved, has a Sheen now for some extra damage alongside those Boots of Lucidity. I don't know if I would have actually finished that Sheen or gone for some Home Guard boots at this point in the game.
Listen, definitely the regular 1,500 gold investment into the home guards just to stay in lane. Because if you lose your turret as Twisted Fate, you have such a hard time strategically as a team. And look, the turret health, it's chipped down. It's at 30% or less. Watch has to spend a lot of time around mid, but Goon, it's not much he can do.
Nope, not much at all. And now Duke and Smeb going head-to-head here. Smeb easily able to hold on at the very least in that trade in spite of the Sheen. He's got a little bit of armor now. Some nice sustain with that Catalyst. So OQ trying to make some plays here. Gets a nice chunk out of Gorilla on the bottom side. So KOO still having some trouble with this Vayne and Janna combo in spite of their, what we would assume is a big advantage. Hojin and Kuro maybe looking for a dive right here. They're going to get into the enemy jungle. And Najin does not know this is happening. OQ trying to back off right now. Hojin coming back from under the turret. There's the explosive cast. OQ immediately gets hit by the last breath. TP coming in from Goong. But there's a nice double shield coming through and a beautiful double from Kuro under the tower. And what do you do against Windwall and Unbreakable if you're Twisted Fate? They're going to be blocking Fizz Fishes too. It is a massive problem.
I wasn't able to see if the Destiny was on cooldown or not, but they pinged sort of defensively. They didn't have any ward coverage whatsoever over the river area. Still very surprising that Gragas and Yasuo could saunter over the bottom lane and cause that engage, but the moment you throw out explosive cast, multiple members of Najin were always going to die.
Yeah, OQ just took a boatload of damage right there. And that's the double to Kuro. Getting that Yasuo fed is a big problem, and he's building Phage.
Okay, so this is something you might not have seen, but Trinity Force Yasuo is starting to become a thing. Of course, your Q applies the on-hit effect, so you can do surprising burst, especially if you get the crit off. And of course, with the changes to the static shiv and Infinity Edge crit, you kind of started to get to weird crit values. I think we're going to be seeing a very expensive build come through, but man, does it do damage.
All right, Gorilla gets knocked up by Watch. Kuro going to respond. Watch has to dodge around from those tornadoes coming out from the Yasuo. And, you know, we've seen a lot of Trinity Force Yasuos in the past.
Sure.
But not usually as a second item, and that's the big change here.
It's starting to get a little bit of popularity over Infinity Edge. Very same cost, but if you space out those Qs in particular, and of course you're auto-attacking and queuing on such a short cooldown throughout fights, it can really pay off. Makes you a turret destroyer as well. And speaking of turrets being destroyed, I mean, this is all Goon can do. He kept those blue buffs. They haven't been able to contest that objective, but he loses his turret.
Yeah, he does. And this is a big change from the KOO Tigers that we saw go up against SKT, because remember in those games, they were playing with Kassadin and Cassiopeia, and Kuro, a big problem in those games was how fast his mid turret was going down to Faker. This time they pick a lane bully, they try and go for that winning matchup, so they have control, and Kuro immediately just waltzes into the top side, and that's another turret down. We've now stretched this to over 3,000 gold advantage at 14 minutes. KOO in complete control of this game, and this is a disaster for Najin. If they can't wrestle out some sort of edge in a lane, their split push is never going to get going, and they are going to get destroyed.
The thing is, their 4-man unit, when Fizz is split away, it's not super strong. It certainly can't outmatch what KOO is able to put together. And there may even be a scenario where Trinity 4 Static Shiv, Yasuo can just go into these side waves and deal with the Fizz. It used to be a counter matchup when it was AP Fizz versus Yasuo, but when we're talking about these item timings from KOO, as watch just casually smites away the red duck. Explosive cast.
Yeah, misses the explosive cast. Smeb's still here on the teleport, but they're not going to get over anywhere unless Smeb really wanted to flash for that, which he does not.
Minion wave super pushed into top. Not a lot of a wave clear from Fizz, so first dragon in the game. It's late, but looks like it's coming for the KOO Tigers.
Yeah. This Gragas from Hojin has been a little bit underwhelming. I look at the KOO Tigers, and I look at Hojin, and he's in the right places. This is the perplexing thing about the KOO Tigers. They will do the right thing, but they will botch the execution in some way. It's just not quite perfect. And right there, Wisdom definitely the better Gragas player between the two KOO junglers, but a couple missed abilities, missed skill shots in this game have cost them kills.
So far, he's missed a body slam that would have led to a last breath, and then just explosive cast has a pretty big range of effect, missing that skill shot as well. Okay, Hojin, you still got the game ahead of you, but you really need to work on the mechanics for the Gragas.
He's also 100% kill contribution rate, and he's been in the right places. Even if he didn't get the kill right there, because of the TP from Smeb, they could immediately transition into the Dragon. So, again, the timings are great for KOO. The shot calling is there, we know that. But it's these micro mistakes that they make, or a lack of a ward here or there on their flank that opens them up to counterplay that really shouldn't exist.
My big question to you, Monte Cristo. So 40% critical strike is what you get from the Static Shiv. You get 20% from the Trinity Force. Of course, logically, 100% comes through from Infinity Edge. You don't need to take any crit runes. Can he really afford to go a super expensive build, or does he go defensive item after the Trinity Force?
I think you just go for it, because if you look at Najin, as we see the gate coming in here, oh my, Goong just poured it into his own demise.
Oh my Goong.
Oh my Goong. It looks like he may have been trying to make a play onto the top side. I don't know if he actually ported right there, but definitely got caught in the end. And Kuro, with that amount of damage right now, cannot be ignored.
KOO Tigers winning lane, winning game, picking up the objectives. And we're still not talking about the Maokai being out-pressured by the Fizz. In fact, 20 C-ups quite comfortably, even though the game hasn't really been played around this lane at all.
No, it has not, but the lane swap really went well for the Tigers. Smeb got a bit of a level advantage from that 1v1 as opposed to the 2v2. Kuro just slicing his way to another tower. Smeb responsible for chasing Watcher out. There's a knock-up again. Watch is there, but he's just going to get bodied as Smeb pops his ult. Goong trying to make a play right now. Duke on the side, but Gorilla is there to help out with some backup, and Kuro had his last breath up again, so dangerous to re-engage.
Yeah, and Ghost was used by Goong to try and get those future gold cards, but he didn't have OQ pressuring the mid lane. Might have been just going into his doom, so they back away. Remember, Maokai got solo experience, so did OQ, but we haven't been talking about Vayne trying to body out the Kog'Maw or dueling at all, despite he being the one that really won the early game rotational play for Najin.
No, this is just a disaster, and this is what can happen if Najin falls behind when they choose to run a composition like this. You just lose all pressure. You will get dove because you have no tanks right now. Duke will be building into some tanky items eventually, but he's nowhere close at the moment.
And Yasuo saunters around, 420 move speed, 420 blaze. It seems to be the strategy from Kuro, and this is a redemption game for him.
All right.
Really performing as OQ looks to re-engage, but double exhaust.
Smeb is here. He's on the backside. There's the Monsoon going down. We will see the gate and the Destiny Watch on the bottom side of the map. Long range, twisted advance. Onto Pure. TP's coming through. And Prey in the middle right now. Duke on top of Gorilla and Prey. Prey actually just going to kite this one out. And there's the big knockback. And here comes Yasuo flashing forward onto Yokyu. Will miss his Steel Tempest, but it's enough from Hojin. He gets another double, and that setup KOO, so smart. They know they don't have TP advantage. Smeb just waiting in the fog of war to make a play, and they are able to answer in a 5v5 on the bottom side just by getting there sooner. They outplayed 2 globals from Najin in that fight with a great setup in the bottom lane.
And honestly, Goong was gun shy. He actually activated the Destiny quite late, and you saw the power, as we're going to see in this replay, of the Trinity Force Yasuo coming through. It makes your Q just do so much more damage because of applying that on-hit effect. So Destiny's been used, not committed to just yet. One teleport being channeled. We're going to see the Destiny come in. Gorilla really smart with his positioning, blocking damage. And now it's time for Yasuo.
Yeah, very nice Unbreakable right there. And look at the 3-man ult. Everyone just explodes.
And each Q is doing over 300 damage. You can't kite him because he has 420 movement speed. And he has, of course, the ability to continue to dash on a very short cooldown. The redemption story from KOO, it's almost completely written. 4-0 and 6, 100% kill participation for the Yasuo.
That's right. And the longsword here, the next item. So he's going to
Jaws theme.
Goodbye, Bray. I mean, Najin, they have to make these picks. That's how they have to play the game. Bray's just like, I got caught. Grin on his face.
Didn't need to be there at all. Got caught, as you mentioned, with his pants down. They're going to keep pushing top lane. And OQ, as has been the story of this game, it's the large non-factor. It's completely on the other side of the map.
Well, they have to keep split pushing right now if they want to get back into this game whatsoever. They only have a very small chance of making this into a competitive match at this point with this level of gold deficit, and the fact that the KOO Tigers are going to be able to bait this Baron basically forever and force fights until the end of the game.
And look, I'm usually the voice of reason. I'm usually the one of the optimistic part of our duo in Monte Cristo, but the item timings for Smeb versus Fizz cannot be denied. Frozen Heart and the Righteous Glory for team fights compared to just a Trinity Force. There's no chopping down this tree.
No, there's not. And here we go, 20-minute Baron from the KOO Tigers. Perfect call right now. They want to force this fight. Gorilla going to get into the pit right there. And will Najin actually commit to this? They sort of have to. Smeb going to recall right now. He's going to have that full HP on a teleport if they decide to go in on this. Watch still hovering on the outside. Duke there too. Prey finally joining the mix. And here comes the Destiny. Baron getting very low. Here it goes. Oh, who's going to get it? It will be Hojin. Watch is just going to get melted into the pit. Goong trying to control the choke point. They get the fish onto Gorilla. Pure has to deal with KOO. KOO just slicing his way to a victory. There is a stun from the concussive blows. And that is it. KOO helps Prey get another kill. Goong still running around in enemy territory right now, but he's going to get delayed. And this Baron, they're just going to be able to push right through to an inhibitor. There is no wave clear from Najin.
It's only Twisted Fate, and he's just going for a lazily walk on the enemy side of the base. He's going to die. Trinity Force Yasuo with the static shift. 420 movement speed outside of combat. You hit a Q. The Rage passive is a melee champion. 440 movement speed. Has those resets on the dash. There's just no way to kite out the damage, and that's why he's overtaken this game.
Yeah, it's been absolute dominance from the KOO Tigers. They couldn't take the inhibitor. Spawn timers were too close. Let's take a look at this Baron fight again.
So this worrying thing for KOO is they actually gave Najin a way back into this game. Both the junglers were level 11. It ended up being basically a smite war. It was won by KOO, and then the resulting team fight was only ever going to go one way because that's not what Najin picked for. They didn't pick for team fights. That's why KOO was like, let's just keep doing this Baron because even if it's smited away, we will win the resulting skirmish.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there is they actually didn't care whether or not they got the Baron because they killed nearly everyone on the team. The Baron would not have saved Najin whatsoever. So
you're either going to win the game completely from taking the Baron or you're going to be in that position where you're still ahead in gold despite maybe a single Baron buff being worn on Najin. So look, you always think about that prisoner dilemma. What am I going to trade for? What am I going to get out of this risk? And the risk was only ever going to go one way for the KOO Tigers.
Yeah, I think that was an excellent Baron call from them. And now
no wave clear, Fizz. What you gonna do?
Watch sadly as they murder your towers.
I mean, murders. Again, KOO. Trinity Force Yasuo. It's coming to a theater near you.
6, 0, and 7 on this Yasuo pickup. And now Najin, they can't defend. They cannot fight 5v5. They can't do anything against this. They have lost because they lost the laning phase and their composition has no answers to a Baroned up KOO comp.
They're basically just watching a nature documentary on how to, you know, rule the animal kingdom. They're learning about lions so far, and the KOO Tiger, 5 lions in this lineup. None bigger than KOO is. Whatever, turret doesn't matter.
He's going to go on a merry Goong chase right now. Everyone just waltzing through, and they force the Destiny out. Goong trying to delay the minion wave, but there's still one there right at the tower. That's going to be enough just to take it out. Prey just auto-attacking freely from the back line.
And look, Najin drafted themselves into this corner, but credit to KOO. Those last 2 picks, one of them expected as OQ's going to explode.
Not quite. There's an exhaust on Akuro. He's getting low. Can OQ take him out? He will finally fall to watch, but Prey is just untouched in this battle, and he is going to clean this up. No doubt. Goong trying to get in there. Gorilla still playing for that front line. Can Najin hold on? They are getting close here, and looks like KOO will back away as Najin heads back to the fountain. Doesn't really matter. They lost 2 for 1, though. They still have those double inhibitors down, and there's nothing at all right now for Najin to take in response.
They lost 2 inhibitors, as you mentioned. There's no dragons, there's no barons, there's nothing apart from picking out more farm. And you're farming and farming to a state that's always still going to be a superior team fight comp from KOO. So it's narrow glory, unfortunately, for Najin. But this is all they can do is try and push up these waves and find a way to force this split push that they picked for in the early game.
It's too late. I mean,
Yep.
they can't even split push any longer because they're so weak in comparison to the KOO Tigers with this 11,000 gold lead that even if their champions are supposed to win, it's tilted so far in terms of itemization that nothing's going to be stopping Kuro's Yasuo at this stage of the game, going for a Bloodthirster as his next item. So eschewing some of that crit, of course, but just going, or the big crit with the Infinity Edge, rather, and going for the shield and the sustain instead.
I think you have to go offensive if you're KOO, and that sounds like a misnomer, but basically what I'm saying is he has such low base stats. In fact, we see a lot of Yasuo's GBM include just throw in a giant spell because his base health is so low that you might be tempted to go for the health, but because he's putting out so much consistent damage, because he can't be kited from the build he's gone with the Trinity Force, the overshield and the sustain will probably do more than throwing in any sort of defensive statistics.
Well, also, he just has to get one ult, and it's so easy with how many knockups are on the KOO's composition. One ult is all he needs. He can die after that, no problem.
So we're waiting for this is the last inhibitor going down. The engage comes in, and Duke, he's dead.
Yes, he is. Agrel pushing forward with the Unbreakable right now. Prey gets that last inhibitor, and now they're going to chain the super minions straight into the turrets. No way for Najin to break this siege. They are going to lose this game in 26.5 minutes right now as KOO just destroys them on the map and plays this composition extremely well.
Najin's the one with more on the line. Watch is going to fall down. They're just looking for kills to pad their kill stats. None more than KOO. This is definitely retribution for him as pure. About to get popped. Nope, lives.
Lives thanks to the Nexus exploding, so that will be game 1 in a very decisive sub 27-minute match for the KOO Tigers. I came in with a plan this time. They eliminated all of the primary engage from Najin systematically. Ban Alistair, ban Annie. Their first 3 picks were Braum, Gragas, Maokai. It left Najin with no way to get onto the enemy team. They decided to go for a split push comp, and that was it. Najin not looking too broken up, smiles on Duke and Watch.
And just from a pick ban perspective, ban away all the primary engage. Get the strongest 3 champions when we talk about both backline threat and, of course, Peel. Lock in the highest damage AD carry.